This is what a joystick sensor resolution of 16,386 looks compared to 1024. See if you can spot which stick is which. So, if you haven't already discerned from the handy-dandy joystick axes option, I am now using a T.16000M to replace my Trustmaster Hotex X. Don't worry, because War Thunder had the brilliant idea of allowing more than one control type being attached and to be used simultaneously, I can still use my Trustmaster throttle. Yay! But back to the stick. What can I say about this thing? Well, from the base downward, this thing is absolutely brilliant. Instead of potentiometers, it uses magnetic sensors with a very high resolution. That means no mechanical dead zone, so the slightest twitch on the inside of my stick will have a very definite feedback. And because this thing is now fresh out of box, and there's still a fair amount of grease on the ball attached to the joystick, this thing is ungodly smooth. I wonder how long that's going to last. Ah well. The stick itself is also pretty stiff and pretty weighty, which I like. It means that every single motion will take a conscious effort on my behalf. So, yeah, no chance of losing control to falling asleep. Compared to the Hotex X, or the Trustmaster T-Flight in general, which have a pretty large mechanical dead zone at the center of the stick. I'm going to bring up my options back here. So if you notice the physical axes, it's a little twitchy on this low of an input caliber, and the stick itself isn't exactly smooth. It hitches quite a little bit on the inside of the stick and squeaks, and there's a fair amount of inconsistent resistance. I mean, I put it under pretty heavy use and it's getting worn down. It still works, which is more than I can say for my Logitech Extreme 3D Pro. But here, very smooth, very precise. Again, I wonder how long the grease on the ball is going to hold out. I hope it just doesn't start hitching like 3 years down the line. It probably will, but whatever. And hopefully the magnetic sensors won't wear out as fast as the potentiometers. So now that I'm done fanboying over that, this stick only costs about $50. I think it's out of production right now, which means it's getting a little bit harder to find. But anyway, where they had to cut corners is, well, because the base of the stick is so damn good. In order to keep that price range, everything from the stick upward kinda is, how should I say, tad less than optimal. The buttons on the stick are, all of them are pretty spongy with a minimal amount of feedback when you press them down. The trigger itself has a lot of play, so I just find myself having to rest it on the micro switch and then give it a little squeeze afterward. Yeah, but it's not exactly unmanageable. And all things considered, I think reeling on the buttons is a pretty poor way to hate on this stick. Unless they start giving out on me like 3 months down the line, then this thing will just be a complete and utter disappointment because the base on this thing is just so damn good. It also has a crap ton of buttons on the base, like 12 in total, that I'll probably never use. It also has like a courtesy throttle, which a lot of these cheapo joysticks have. But I never bother with them. They're all cheap. They all wear out in a matter of minutes. And why would I need that? I still have my Trustmaster T.16000M. Yay. And it still works in conjunction with the other stick. Double yay. So, that's all nice and all, but so what does this mean for War Thunder? Well, I'm hesitant to say game changer, though it probably is. I mean, what I mean here is the I-16, an arcade flight model. Pretty unstable aircraft. Likes to bounce a lot. But here, there's several factors of the stick that play into War Thunder's favor. One of the key ones being the control near the center of the stick. Like I said, the slightest input will have a definite response. And thanks to resolution, that response is there and able for me to act on. The stick itself is also very smooth, so that helps with pulling maneuvers, making sure that my aircraft doesn't get away from me too much. And when I want to exit out my maneuver and center back, the weight of the stick comes in play that I can just release pressure on my hand and let the weight of the stick guide my hand back to the center. And this ensures a smooth release from the maneuver. Unlike the T-Flight, which is very light, so I pretty much have to release the stick completely to stop moving. And that has often caused me to overshoot or undershoot my target and what have you. This is weighty, responsive, and I can't wait to go back in arcade mode and blast some fools with it. Just one more shoot down for good measure. Ah, brilliant. So, what does this mean for control setups? As you can see, I am getting away with a very high sensitivity on my roll and pitch. My yaw sensitivity is still handled by my Trustmaster T.16000M rocker, which I prefer. This thing does have a twist, but it's a pretty low resolution twist, 256. So, it's about the same. I mean, it's very weighty. It feels nice, but I don't think I'd inadvertently nudge it too badly when I'm doing maneuvers. But just for the sake that I still have a very good rocker, and that's actually a pretty good control setup for me, I think I'll just stick with the throttle rocker for now. So, I'm getting away with a very high sensitivity, and also another thing to note is your non-linearity. Especially with this stick, you have a lot of control near the center. So you don't need a high nonlinearity like with the T-Flight. You can put it up to 9, just so you have that low nudgy control outside the mechanical dead zone, which is a pain in the ass to deal with. Here, you can get away with a very low nonlinearity or even none for a perfect linear control. So it's going to be down to personal preference. So yeah, that's pretty much my first impressions on the Trustmaster T.16000M. And I'm liking this thing so far. I could do with a bit finer buttons, but that's in no way, shape, or form a deal breaker. I mean, it's so smooth, even in very harsh maneuvers. It's brilliant. Ah, glorious. Glorious, glorious.